Welcome to Navigate with Tim Austin, a podcast for anyone navigating life's seasons of change. Here we believe transition isn't just something to survive, it's an opportunity for growth. Each episode offers practical coaching insights to help you navigate change with greater clarity, confidence, and hope. I'm Tim Austin, and I'm glad you're here. Now, let's navigate this conversation together. Welcome back to the Navigate podcast. In our last episode, I shared why I'm bringing this podcast back and how my own understanding of transition has changed over the years. Today, I want to introduce an idea that has become foundational to everything I do as a coach. And it's surprisingly simple. Transition is not the same thing as change. Most of us use those words interchangeably. We say things like, I'm going through a transition, when what we really mean is that we've changed jobs, moved to another city, retired, got married, experienced a divorce, or lost someone we love. Those are changes. Transition is something different. It's what happens inside of us while life is changing around us. When someone asks us what's changing, we usually tell them those external facts, the things we see and experience. I accepted a new position. We're moving. The kids are leaving home. We're becoming empty nesters. I retired. My company was acquired. And those are all real changes. But here's what I've discovered after coaching hundreds of people through seasons like these. The external event is rarely what creates the greatest challenge. It's what that event begins stirring in us internally. Questions pop up like, who am I now? Where do I belong? What does success even look like anymore? Can I trust God with this uncertainty? These are transition questions. When my family moved overseas years ago, people assumed we were making a big transition because we were learning another language or adapting to another culture. And that was definitely part of it. But honestly, the harder work happened inside of me, learning to release old identities, layers of identity that were built up over time that may or may not have been true about me, learning to live without familiar routines, learning to trust God when I couldn't see very far ahead. The move, the actual physical move, was the change, but everything happening beneath the surface, that was transition, and I found that's true almost every time. It's kind of like thinking, as we think about an iceberg, I started thinking about how does that compare to transition when we think about the iceberg above the water. On the surface or above the water, everybody sees what we see, right? The new job, the move, the retirement, the diagnosis, the graduation, the promotion, the empty nest. Those are all visible things. But below the surface, there's those bigger questions around identity, grief and loss. There's fears, there's hopes, there's expectations. There's a purpose or a lack of. There's relationships, and there's faith. And that's where that real work is happening. And here's the problem. Many times we spend all of our energy trying to manage what's above the surface while completely ignoring what's underneath. And eventually what's underneath begins to become so real to us or painful to us or a pressure point that we can't ignore any longer. Why do some people get stuck? I think there's a number of reasons for this when we look at stuckness in transition. But over and over, When we think about, let's think about two people going through a transition. They could experience the same life change, and one emerges stronger and the other feels lost, maybe feels lost for years. Why is that? It's not because one change was harder. It's because they navigated that internal transition differently. One person paid attention to what was happening inside, and the other person maybe only focused on solving the external problems. And transition always invites us inward before it sends us outward. Over the past several years, as I've coached leaders, missionaries, pastors, professionals, couples, people from all walks of life, I noticed that nearly every transition touches three major areas in our lives. First, our identity and our calling. Questions like, who am I becoming? What's God inviting me into? Questions like that. Second, our relationships. How are the people closest to me being affected? What relationships am I grieving? Which ones am I celebrating? Which ones need attention? And the third thing that transition impacts is our community and support systems. Who's walking with me? What routines, places, and people have anchored me? What support do I need moving forward? Those three areas don't explain everything, but together they become a helpful map. Not necessarily a formula, but a map to help us move forward and to recognize where some of those concerns lie around our transition. Because transition isn't something we conquer, it's something that we learn to navigate. And over the coming episodes, we're going to spend some time exploring each of these areas in much greater depth. So, let me leave you with one question this week. Think about whatever transition you're experiencing right now. And instead of asking, what is changing, try asking, what is changing in me? Or another question might be, what is God inviting me into? That question might reveal far more than we expect. Because often the greatest work that God is doing isn't just what we see around us or the externals. It's what's going on internally within us. Thanks for joining me for another episode of Navigate. If today's conversation resonated with you, I'd love to invite you to visit EncompassLifeCoaching.com. There you'll find practical resources, articles, workshops, and my free Transition Impact Assessment, a coaching tool designed to help you discover where transition is impacting your life the most and where you might want to focus next. And if you found this episode helpful, be sure to subscribe and consider sharing it with someone who may be navigating a season of change. Sometimes the greatest gift we can offer is helping someone realize they're not alone. Until next time, remember, transition isn't just about what changes around us, it's about what changes within us. As you navigate your own journey, may you find greater clarity, confidence, and hope for the road ahead. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next time.